Part 1, about me and current level of activity. The aim of PARAS Home and Community is to enable stroke survivors to increase their physical activity when discharged home. Often goal setting and activity plans can be very different in the home compared to on the ward. Therefore, we've got a slightly different way of delivering the key components of PARAS. PARAS Home and Community can be used as a follow-on from PARAS Ward or by stroke survivors who have never used PARAS before. All of Part 1 can be undertaken before the stroke survivor meets with the professional, and ideally at least 7 days before, so that they can complete the physical activity diary accurately to help them fill out the International Physical Activity Questionnaire. However, sometimes the stroke survivor might need the help of a professional to complete Part 1, and it might trigger some good conversation that informs goal setting later. The introduction to PARAS Home and Community provides information about the aim of PARAS, what physical activity is, what types of activities it might cover, and why activity is important to aid recovery, and this information can be read or discussed. Under the introduction, there's a picture demonstrating the main aim and objectives of PARAS, and this can be used without text to simply explain the aim and objectives of PARAS and might be particularly helpful if someone has dysphasia. There's some general safety advice which should be discussed or read by the stroke survivor. The next section, About Me, gathers information about the stroke survivor. If they've already completed this on the ward, they don't need to redo, or they might find it helpful to reflect on whether any of their answers to the questions have changed. This information can be used by the healthcare professional in supporting discussions around physical activity goals. For example, they might highlight there's an important event coming up in the near future, for example a wedding that they'd like to attend, and this might feed into a goal. And this page can also be used by the wider multidisciplinary team to aid understanding of the stroke survivor. The stroke survivor then records 7 days of their current level of activity on the physical activity diary and completes the International Physical Activity Questionnaire, the Rivermead Mobility Index, and the Warwick and Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale, and more details on these outcome measures are provided in the video below. After completion of the outcome measures, the stroke survivor is presented with a range of evidence-based physical activity benefits which should be discussed. Open questions at the top of the page are there to aid the conversation on these benefits. The stroke survivor is then presented with a range of outcomes that stroke survivors have identified as meaningful outcomes that would motivate them to move more and sit less. The outcomes are presented with quotes to help the stroke survivor think about what might be meaningful for them and whether they resonate with any of those quotes. And then that helps them to select a meaningful outcome. They also have to identify a long-term goal to walk towards over the next 12 months. If you feel that this is unrealistic, don't pass judgment on this goal unless the patient asks specifically what you think is realistic. It's important not to burst anyone's bubbles to aid motivation, and often stroke survivors will change their long-term goal as their understanding of their recovery increases, and this is a really important part of learning about life after stroke.